Alright, Sci-Fi Express Lane, Jeff Carroll here, doing a little reaction to a video reaction, and kind of put things into perspective. Alright, so I want to react to this. Well, I'm gonna call this one From Seneca Village to Harlem. Really not that deep. It's just a simple title. But I want to talk about that. I'm a historian, right? I majored in management and history when I was in college. African history was the first continent of civilization on the world. So I started from the bottom. I didn't pick up European history, which would be the youngest history on the planet. I started with African history. And because of that, I put everything else in life and the human story into perspective, because I started from the beginning. And I use those skills when I'm researching my stories. I use those skills, and also those skills help me see and recognize good stories, you know. And my series, The Harlem Shake, and the spinoff, The Last Harlemite Comic, both out now, are evidence of that, or proof of that, or byproducts of that, or whatever you want to call it. And today, I want to talk about it. Harlem Shake, and I'm going to get into it later, but is now the subject of so much internet history, right? We're going to have to call it internet history, where people find things out on the internet, and you learn from it, and it goes viral, right? So I have done the same thing. I see things on the internet, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know about that. I think what really fuels internet history is the connectedness that the internet provides. A lot of times it's new history to the world, and people, you know that, like the columns or the energy columns underneath the pyramids, right? Or the pyramids that they're finding all around the world. Those are like new, those are definitely new discoveries. But before the internet, we would travel around the world, or wherever we traveled, and it would be regional history. It would be the story that never made it to the books, the story that is known to all the people, but it's not the one that is the popular. It's not the one that made it to Hollywood. And so historians always value going to the places where they were learning about and doing the history about, because they would learn something from going there. Now, those people are telling those stories on the internet. And although they're not new discoveries, they're new to people because they're the regional stories. They're the indigenous story. They're the ones that may not have all the blanks filled in, but because they're really local, and they're not necessarily world historians, so they don't know the connectedness of their story to something else. And also, in addition to being a historian, I'm an activist, right? So my history fuels my activism. My activism fuels my history, because if you're working to improve something, you got to know what the heck is going on in that area, going on with that thing. So what do you call it? That goes, activism and history, historical studies, they go hand in hand, right? So when I'm looking at history, I'm not just looking at what happened. I'm looking at how's it going on now? What's connected to today, right? How's it impacting me now? Now, and also, how's the activism affect my history? okay, or historical research. If I find something today, I want to know what caused it. Where did it come from? How did we get into this situation? And then that causes me to do historical research. So with that said, there's a long introduction. I want to play this clip. It's 2 minutes long. We are now in the area where everybody's talking about Seneca Village, but they're talking not as activists, they're talking as historians. And it's all good, but I'm gonna tell you how I spent it and how I spun it for my books, The Harlem Shake and The Last Harlemite.
Everybody calls this place Central Park. But in 1825, this was Seneca Village, one of the first places blacks could own property in New York, which also means there were some of the first black people to vote in this state. Seneca Village was founded 2 years before slavery ended here. It had 200 residents, 3 churches, a school, and over 50 homes. Yet in 1853, the city labeled it a shanty town. Because y'all know when they control your narrative, they control you. They used eminent domain to bulldoze the village and build Central Park. Residents tried to fight it in the courts. They tried branding themselves as the middle-class neighborhood they were. They even refused to leave. But in 1857, the marshals came in and dragged them out their homes. Fast forward to 2011, archaeologists started digging in the park. They found stone foundations of homes. So this was no shantytown. They found teacups, tools, and shoe soles, proof of life. They found children's items like porcelain dolls. They're just a stable family community. That's what was bulldozed to create Central Park. So yeah, it's nice and all, but they've been using the same playbook since we got out of slavery. Take our land, strip us of the right to vote, and build something for the general public so they don't stand behind us. Central Park, huh? This must be New York's Gulf of America. Thanks, New York, for your playbook to systemic racism.
All right, so that clip was good. I got about 6 more minutes. I'll explain myself. That is the history, right, of Seneca Village. That's a really good history of Seneca Village, and that's about the average story that's going on around Seneca Village. However, Seneca Village isn't the story. Seneca Village is the beginning of the story. When I started working on my book, The Harlem Shake, in 2015, I'm going to say, 2015 or 14, let's say, because it take me about 3 months to write the first book, and maybe a little time to edit it and get it ready, and then it finally came out in 16. But I wanted to write a story about a black disaster. I wanted to do a black earthquake, and this is on the heels of the earthquake that hit Haiti, right? And I believe that was, I'm not gonna say 2011, but it was around 2012, 2013, and I live in Miami area, right? And it impacted a lot of people, a lot of families, a lot of friends. Not directly, but even directly, because we had a lot of people coming to America. This was like when I first started teaching, started working in education again in 2014, 2015. And as we started getting a lot of Haitian children coming in, and it was just all over the news because it impacted a big Haitian community down here in Miami. And, just like 9/11, there was a lot of conspiracy theories. And one of the conspiracy theories that that rooted in my mind was the frackling conspiracy theory. Now, the media is all into, how do we help these people? And I was helping people. I was helping people. My brother staying out in Jersey, he was helping people, helping get aid there. We was doing it locally. So yeah, you don't stop for that. But also, you want to know what the heck caused it, so that way it doesn't cause it again. It doesn't happen again. And, Haiti been around just like the whole Northern Hemisphere have been around. But, nothing was ever on that level of a earthquake before. So we wanted to know what happened. Was it something unnatural that's going on? Is it climate change? Is it anything else? And lo and behold, the frackling. So not doing any, big activism to stop frackling, yeah, I'm all for other energy uses and that, and I work in that space, and I vote for politicians that use, other forms of energy. I'm definitely down with that, but I wasn't taking that on. What I looked at was, dang, Franklin happened around a fault line. And I said, wow, there's fault lines all over the world. And it wasn't just because there was a fault line near Haiti that it was a problem, because there's fault lines all over the world. It's just that other cities and other communities and countries have protection so that these Franklins don't go on near their cities to cause an earthquake to destroy their city. So I was like, that's why it happened, because Haiti isn't that strong with an army and a country presence. It's a small country, right? So I was like, wow. So then I started looking at, it was in the back of my head, I also wanted to do this book on a black earthquake, black disaster. Part of the reason why I wanted to do a black disaster was living in South Florida, there's a lot of hurricanes, and there's like a lot of people that dealt with hurricanes in the Caribbean live here, and their post-hurricane life is a lot easier, stabler, and calmer than what you see in the news, pushing panic, right? Oh my God, it's going to be, Walking Dead, you know what I'm saying? If there's a natural disaster, you better get a gun, you better protect your house, prep in that direction. And I was like, nah, man, every time I see post-hurricane, it brings out humanity in people. So I wanted to show the contrast between how black people will behave and how the narrative of human behavior is, right? We always judge our human behavior by Western standards. So I wanted to do some contrast, because I'm not from the West. My oppressors are, right? So when I researched fault lines, I found there was a fault line right down 125th Street. Then I learned that this fault line was discovered around the time of Seneca Village's eminent domain. So I think, one didn't fuel the other, but one came to the rescue of others. And what these videos that you hear about Seneca Village don't mention is that those people didn't die. They didn't get absorbed up into Lower Manhattan. They were relocated to an area that they found in New York that was not stable. And that's, the second part of the crime. And the biggest part for me is the buildings in Harlem where people still live and have lived, and where my parents met, and where I worked for 15, 20 years, are not earthquake code. So that's the biggest, that's the biggest thing. I mean, even when Columbia University bought the Audubon Ballroom when Malcolm X was shot, it was because they triggered the fault line when they were building their research facility. How did they find the fault line in the first place? Was the city was building their trains. And if you go to 5 and 6 or the 1 and 9, when they get around 125th Street, they go above ground. It's not because they want to keep the trains level. That's bull crap. They couldn't dig, and they still can't dig around that fault line because it's, a fault line. And you're digging around it, just like Franklin, you cause an earthquake. And it might not just stop at the destruction of the local area. It will send shockwaves all the way in the region, So they don't want to destroy New York City, so they stopped that. And I think that is messed up. As much as I love Harlem, Seneca Village could have been Harlem, right? But as much as I love Harlem, that's messed up, And now we are seeing more earthquakes happening in the area, and even when we do have regular earthquakes, they all happen around fault lines. It makes other fault lines in other areas all around fault lines even more dangerous. So that's it. I mean, I'm not really here to talk about the book so much. I just wanted to talk about, how a historian and a writer does the research for these different things. If you do get a chance, one of the things that I fantasized about, speculated about, was that these companies and these cities didn't just discover a fault line. They mapped out exit plans and strategies on how to survive them. And that's what I used in the Harlem Shake to help them escape. And the funny thing was, I called the book what I speculated Columbia University would call the book, and I called it The Negro's Fault. And they used that book. And that book is going to come back up in The Last Harlemite, towards the transition from where they are now to where they'll end up. But yes, so that is crazy, but it's also important for us because history isn't just isolated. These incidents connect to today. History isn't just the story of the past. History is the makeup of our present. Just like your history and your family and your ancestors tell your story and how you end up the way you are, history does that. The history of Harlem isn't that it started in the 20s. The history of Harlem is started in the discovery of the fault line, is the eminent domain of Seneca Village. That's the story of Harlem. So anyway, like, subscribe, share, and comment, and check out my books. The Harlem Shake is three books. The Harlem Shake is the story of the earthquake. Survivor's Peak is when your supplies of a survivalist run out, all your canned corn and all that run out, and you got to now live off the land like you've been training. And then the last one is Escape from Every World. And Every World is my villain, my first female villain. You'll love it. I know I went over time on this one, but it's important. And then The Last Harlemite tells a story of young people and people living in New York City right immediately after the earthquake. Those immediate survivalists. All right, touch base with you later. Peace.